everybody? Jets Gary is here. I'm here to fix the New York Jets, and man, what a disaster this season was. I don't want to talk about it. To start off fixing the New York Jets, this video is going to be on my top 3 ideal New York Jets head coaches to hire. Coming up right now, I have a positive and negatives about each one, and it's going to be in order on who I want. Starting with, at number 3, the mystery guy I have in the thumbnail is Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Joe Brady is one of the best offensive minds in the game of the NFL. He's young and innovative, could be the next Sean McVay. Man, would I kill for the New York Jets to have a young, successful coach like Sean McVay. He's very good in tough situations, coming from LSU, being the wide receiver coach and the passing game coordinator when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were there. He successfully won a national championship, so that's where he was successful in those tough situations. He has a track record of developing players. This season, the Bills came into the season not having a lot of expectations, not having a lot of weapons on offense, and Josh Allen is going absolutely off, having an MVP season, probably going to win the MVP, with getting these small players like Johnson's getting playing time, Ray Davis, Shakir, Keon Coleman, bringing in Amari Cooper, putting Amari Cooper in the system, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox still being the target that he is. So how many weapons that aren't that great, he turns them into something solid. And the Bills are an offensive threat. Being in the playoffs right now, don't know how far it goes, don't know when you're seeing this video, but the Bills are absolutely killing it, going on to the divisional round, and he would be a solid head coach from those positives. The negatives I have is that Joe Brady has never been a head coach. Joe Brady's never been a head coach in the collegiate level, hasn't been a head coach in the NFL level, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him to learn, when to call challenges, call timeouts, situational. He might not be all that there right away. The growing pains, as you can say. He's been 50-50 in the NFL is the second one. He is very successful as Buffalo, moving up the ranks from QB coach to offensive coordinator. But before this, he was with the Carolina Panthers and didn't really have success over there, getting fired over there. Offense not being that great. Next is his uncertain leadership. We don't know how much of a leader Joe Brady is. You don't hear that much about him. He hasn't been heard about even as much in the head coaching search. You hear his name here and there, but in the NFL field, you haven't heard people trying to jump on Joe Brady. There might be a reason. Him being uncertain as a leader could be one of those. And my last knock on him is, how would his defensive staff look? He is a great offensive mind, but who are they going to get with him to run? Be an offensive coordinator. He's probably going to be the play caller if he's the head coach. But who's going to be the OC? Who's going to be the defensive coach? How would a Joe Brady staff look like? Number 2, I have the Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. Brian Flores, a Brooklyn native in a state that he grew up in. Flores is running one of the best defenses with the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have, once he became the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, they've been a blitz-heavy team and has been very successful, winning 14 games this year, and largely being part of that defense that Brian Flores created is an absolute monster. Next is, if he gets hired, he will have a solid staff with him. Me saying solid staff, I'm talking about Josh McCown. They will probably bring Josh McCown in as an offensive coordinator. Josh McCown, as you know, former New York Jets quarterback, moved up the ranks in the coaching scheme as people already see him as a viable head coaching candidate. And to have him as an offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, being young, being a quarterback in the NFL, knowing what he needs to do, would probably be very successful for us. Next is for Brian Flores, as he is a big leader and very big on accountability. His defenses don't draw a lot of penalties, which is big for us because this year the New York Jets drew a lot of penalties on the offensive defensive side. They are very undisciplined, and Brian Flores will come in here and be very disciplined and turn that thing around, hold players accountable, and you'll see a lot more of a disciplined team if he is the head coach of the New York Jets. And lastly, he has experience with rebuilding teams. Coming in, before this, he was way before the Vikings, he was the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. As you know about all the stuff that happened with Miami. But the good stuff is that he came in when the Dolphins were absolutely at his lowest and got fired, having a pretty solid record with the Miami Dolphins, besides all the other stuff that happened in Miami. Now to go on to the negatives. The negatives is Offensive challenges. How is he going to be on offense? It's going to be very reliant on Josh McCown, as Josh McCown also has never been an offensive coordinator at all. He's been a QB coach, so you don't know how much he's going to bring to the table, and it's going to probably put a lot of pressure on Josh McCown to deliver on the offensive side, as Flores mostly focuses on the defense, so he's not going to be very keen on focusing on the offense. Number 2 is his controversy with the Miami Dolphins, knowing with the Tua situation, saying that Tua is terrible, he doesn't want Tua as quarterback. He says that he's learned from these mistakes, but you got to believe it when you see it, and that was a very big one for them. And another one is his old coaches will not vouch for him. Have you seen the podcast with Ryan Fitzpatrick saying that he burned a lot of bridges in Miami, and a lot of those guys won't suggest that he would be a good head coaching candidate? So he has a lot of, what am I trying to say? He has a lot of baggage coming in with him. He has a lot of baggage coming with him if we hire him as a head coach. And lastly is a power struggle. He had a very big fight with the Miami owner, as before they wanted to tank to get Joe Burrow. As you saw, they didn't properly tank, and the Miami Dolphins won, I believe, 10 games his last season. And they ended up drafting Tua Tagovailoa, having a huge fight with the owner about tanking. As me, personally, I don't want a head coach that wants to tank. I get it that you want to tank maybe for the best prospect there is, or whatever the prospect is. You got to win games, man. That does not show what kind of culture this is. You could win a bunch of games, and you could also trade your future capital to get, they said, quarterback. I'm not very big on the tank. I'm not a pro tank guy. I want them to go out and win games. Brian Flores is that type of guy to go out and win games if he is hired as our head coach. Lastly, my number 1 pick is Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator. This is my pick for who I think the Jets should hire as a head coach. Aaron Glenn is exceptional on the defensive side. He's been amazing. He's been working up the ranks. He is a former DB for the New York Jets, as I put over there as one of the positives. He is a Jets culture guy. He's been a Jets player. He knows how it feels to be a player in the shoes of all these guys. So he knows what they're going through. He's a player. He could tell what's going on or what's going through a player's mind and how to handle that stuff. Also, he's led the Detroit Lions to a top defense, and half of the whole defense is injured. Aaron Glenn is also a leader among men. He is great at communicating. He just had a great interview coming up saying if somebody hires me, they're not getting a defensive coach, they're also getting an offensive coach, because he will talk to both sides of the ball. That's what I would like to see from a head coaching candidate. And lastly, he would get the most out of Sauce Gardner. Him being a DB, a former great DB, he will teach Sauce more than he already knows. Sauce had a very down year, and I feel like bringing in a coach that used to play the DB position, him working with Sauce Gardner will turn him into an even better player than he is now. As for my negatives, he has no head coaching experience. Similar to Joe Brady, he has never been a coach in the NFL, but they both worked their ranks up, which is a positive on both. Number 2, the lack of offensive experience. Yes, I did say he said he was going to work with both the offense and the defense, but like I said with Brian Flores, you got to believe him until I see it. He needs to prove that he could work with the offensive side and learn. He's only been a defensive guy. He's only been a DB's coach before this. And then my next negative is inexperience in a high role. Before this, he was a DB coach, and then just recently a defensive coordinator. This is his first very big job. Him coming in, being a head coaching would be a lot of head scratches, but we'll see where that goes. And then lastly, what would an Aaron Glenn staff look like? As probably a lot of you watching this video know a lot more than I do. I don't know how Aaron Glenn's staff would work at an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. You let me know in the comment section below who you think Aaron Glenn's staff would look like. And that's it for the end of the video. In my opinion, I think the New York Jets firstly should hire Aaron Glenn if they get a chance to get him. Like I said, he's a Jets culture guy. He's going to get the most out of these players. As you've seen quote tweets from Jermaine Johnson, they seem to want Aaron Glenn. I want Aaron Glenn as well. Let me know who you guys want as head coach down below. I'm Jets Gary, and I'm out. Peace.
Yeah, stop wasting my time trying to get mine. Get out the way.